Good morning, everyone. Spooner Area School Superintendent Dr. David Aslyn is my guest today. Thursday, April 2nd, 2020. I'm Ben Dryden. You're watching DrydenWire Live. A special thank you to my guests so far this week: Darren Cox, Chris Fitzgerald, and John Yackel. You can watch a recording of all of our live chats on our website, DrydenWire.com. Tomorrow I'll be chatting with a special guest, which we will probably announce later today on our website. Reminder, you can watch all of our Facebook live things. If you don't go to our website, you can go right onto our video tab or on our YouTube channel. All right, so let's bring in our today's guest, Superintendent Dr. David Aslyn. Let's see if he's there. There he is. Dave, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Ben. I'm doing well. It's great to be with you here on the DrydenWire.
Well, thank you. See you're at work. My screen just went weird. How's it been going at work? Are you still going to work every day?
I am still going to work every day. We're running district operations on a skeleton crew, and we've been providing a variety of services to kids, a big one being food service, where we delivered over 1,400 meals for kids yesterday.
Just yesterday?
Just yesterday.
Holy cow. Is that a high? Is that a normal day for you guys?
That was a high. We began food service immediately after the shutdown order came on, and the first few days were kind of in the high 80s or low 100s in numbers, and now we've gone to home delivery as well as a pickup option, and it's increased each day. So yesterday, over 1,400 meals served. Which is
wow,
great.
That's fantastic. How do people? How does that work actually?
So through our district website and through our communication system called Sky Alert, the word has gone out to families in a really simple process for families that are interested in having meals delivered for their children.
Okay.
So send it back in, yes.
Well, I want to get to a lot of stuff about the referendum, but before that, I think that what's on most people's minds right now, of course, with the coronavirus, are kids going back to school this year or not?
Yeah, so it is a very complicated world that we're living in right now. And I want to say, please know that everybody in the Spooner Area School District is wishing health and safety to everybody in our community and everybody who's impacted by this really worldwide. And just encourage everybody to please do all that they can to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. We know that with all that's going on, at some point, actions and activities are gonna begin again. At this point, we do not have a clear end for when the school shutdown will take place. We don't know that at this point. We know that Governor Evers has issued an order that goes through late April. We know that President Trump has extended the social distancing guidelines through the end of April. And we know that the Department of Public Instruction has encouraged school districts to begin to think about planning for remote education through the end of the current school year as a contingency.
So you said that so DPI is kind of issuing that plan, or the kind of the school districts be prepared in the event that they don't go back to school?
That's correct. They have given guidance that encourages school districts to do planning for instruction that may include not going back with students in the classroom with their teacher for the remainder of this school year.
And so does DPI, are they the ones that actually put this together, or does each individual school district have to come up with their own plan?
Each individual school district comes up with their own plan. The department really just gives some general guidelines.
Do you anticipate announcing that at any point of what you're going to do in the event that you do that? Are you already kind of planning on announcing something?
We've been doing some planning, and I would encourage parents and families to stay tuned the first part of next week, and we'll be releasing more information about instruction going forward for the immediate future and perhaps the rest of the school year here in school.
So would that be the advice that you would give parents of the Spooner School District, maybe even just other school districts in general, but specifically for the Spooner School District, to also start planning for the event that they're not going to go back to school? Not saying that they aren't, just planning on the rest of this year, not start putting some plans in place, whatever that is for each individual family.
Right. We can't know for sure whether we'll go back to school
Right.
this year or not, but parents may do well to at least have that a contingency in their planning.
All right. Well, I want to get to some referendum things. So that's coming up on Tuesday. So first, do you think that have you already considered the fact that with the coronavirus and with maybe people not going to vote if they haven't done absentee ballot already, is this going to help or hurt the referendum?
That's a great question, Ben, and it's one that I can't give you a yes or no answer on. Obviously, these are unprecedented times in our community and in our state and in our nation and in our world. So it's really hard to know what the impact will be. What we do know is the district has provided a significant amount of ballots to municipal clerks because of the high demand for absentee voting. So we're quite confident that the absentee vote will play a larger role than in previous referendum votes. And I think the other piece that is worth mentioning to your listeners is today is the final day for most voters to register for absentee voting.
Oh.
Yep.
So they should register absentee if they plan on voting for the referendum, but if not, just don't even bother.
I would say it's important that people's voices are heard. So
okay. Hey, so we actually have a question here. I didn't even think about that. What's the plan for graduation?
Yeah, so lots of questions that are up in the air right now that there aren't answers for, but more information to come, and perhaps a good topic for another show in the future.
Okay, Lori, so the answer is don't know. But stay tuned. We'll probably have an answer at some point.
Yes.
Got it. So what is actually on the referendum for people who don't know or haven't been paying attention to it?
So the referendum, it's a $16 million referendum, and it really focuses $16 million. Yes. So it has some major components to it. Part of it goes to enhancing the security posture district-wide and increasing security in each of the buildings. There's a portion of it that would address District Americans with Disability Act concerns and bring facilities up to that important code. Mm-hmm. There are significant infrastructure improvements planned for each building, so that involves heating, ventilation, technology, those infrastructure things that are critical to good teaching and learning. It would create space on our Spooner Elementary School building to house the district's 4K program under one roof at the Spooner Elementary School, continuing our partnership with that great program with Head Start. It would also provide for a cafeteria, performance, academic space at the elementary school as well, and then some upgrades at the middle school with tile, a tear down of the small gym at the Spooner Middle School, right, which has been uninhabitable for the past 5 years, and major overhaul of the Anthels gym.
When it comes to specifically the building updates, that's in the referendum. How did we get to the point where we needed to go to referendum just to update our buildings?
That's a great question, and it goes all the way back now to 2016. And at that time, the Spooner School Board commissioned Cooperative Educational Service Agency, or CESA 10, out of Chippewa Falls to do a comprehensive facility audit. So CESA 10 came in, looked at all the facilities and grounds, looked at all the systems within those buildings, and made a prioritized list of recommendations. And, I want to say Spooner has been just blessed to have dedicated maintenance staff for years. And so they've done a great job keeping things up, and we've done upgrades as we've been able to do that. But, you need to think of a school building kind of like your own house, and that is with the wear and tear of everyday use. Things wear, things break, things wear out, and they need to be replaced. And that's where we wind up with this. So in 2017 and 18, the school board did some extensive strategic planning, came out of that with some strategic priorities, and one important one was stabilizing the district's infrastructure. So in that, they had directed the administration to form a referendum facilities committee. That group was made up of community members, parents, students, school board members, staff members, and they took a hard look at the CISA 10 audit and viewed the buildings and grounds quite closely, and they put together a list of recommendations for the board to consider. So the board received those July last year. Many of you will recall last fall, the board worked with the school perceptions company to do a comprehensive community survey of parents, staff members, and community members about possible referendum projects. And out of that, we got to the point where we bring this $16 million capital improvement issue forward.
How did that go? What were the results of that, by the way?
So very interesting. So we sent approximately 5,000 surveys out by the time all was said and done. And our response rate hovered right around 20%, which School Perceptions tells us that is a really solid response. So I appreciate everybody completing the survey because the input was very telling. And it was interesting because it represented the demographic groups that make up our community. So there were staff members, there were parents that were not staff members. There was also good representation of people that aren't staff members and don't have children in school of different age groups. So really a nice cross section. What came out of that survey was that there was support for a referendum, and while there was good support up to the $16 million level for the projects we've identified, there were some projects that people were not supportive of.
Ooh, what were those?
So one of the projects was not doing any work to the current Spooner Middle School and then building an addition for the middle school on the existing high school building. Not a broad base of support for that. Another one was putting artificial turf on the sports field behind Spooner High School. So not support for that one. So those are projects that maybe at some point we'll get another look,
sure.
But not at this time.
So based on those results of the 20% of the 5,000 you sent out, are you optimistic for next Tuesday's referendum vote?
We certainly are optimistic enough to carry it forward, and it will. We've had the opportunity to get out and do a number of presentations and share information about the referendum. There certainly have been people that have voiced their support for the project. It is. I know we'll talk about the finances a little bit later in the show. It seems to be a particularly good value as interest rates drop, and it's hard to know what impact the current health crisis will have. But our message is that the needs of the district will continue to be the same once we are beyond this critical part of the health crisis.
Well, speaking of the financial part, I know there's one big one that people want to know: taxes. What kind of, when this passes, what's the tax impact?
That is the number one question that people ask when we're out talking about the referendum. And so it's a $16 million issue, and that is a lot of money. And we would look to finance that over a 20-year period of time. Through some good financial planning and good fortune, we will see a decline in the payments that we are currently paying on the debt for the existing high school building that start next year. And when we first started planning for this referendum project, interest rates were about 4.25%. They went down to 4%, and now interest rates would be, in all likelihood, less than 4%, and maybe closer to 3%.
Okay.
So, based on our projections right now, should the $16 million referendum pass on April 7th, we would not be looking at an increase of the levy to pay for debt service. So that's the projection at this time.
Wow. What's the plan B here? If this doesn't pass.
Yeah. So
what's plan B?
We've led with our best plan, Ben. That's what I would tell you, that we really have led with our best plan. We think that the referendum issue that we brought forward is reflective of the input that we've received. If it were not to pass, the board would need to pull back, examine the issue, examine the feedback that we'd get about why it wouldn't pass. Then they'd have to make a determination whether they'd want to put another question forward or not. Right now, Wisconsin state law lets a district put 2 questions a year forward, so it would be conceivable that a question could go on a November ballot, but it would be to be determined if it did not pass next Tuesday.
If there wasn't a limit on 2, do you think that would have been better, or it would have been irrelevant?
I think in our case it would have been irrelevant. Some school districts will use their 2 questions on one ballot at one election, and that wasn't what was the best course of action for us here in school.
When you do go around and you're talking to people, or people have reached out to you, email, phone call, whatever, what is their biggest concern when you hear, outside of like the tax stuff, and when you explain that to them, which I don't understand most of those things, what is the other reasons, what are the other things that you hear that you kind of need to educate some people on, because maybe it's misinformation. Maybe they just didn't know that actually, no, that's not true. Have you heard any of those things? Had any of those questions asked?
There have been some reoccurring themes that have come up, and it's kind of interesting. So when school buildings are built, they're typically built with a plan of about 50 years of lifespan on them.
I didn't know that.
So when we look at the middle school, it's had a number of upgrades in the 50s, 60s, 90s, and then 2010. But the mechanical core of that building was built in 1940. So there are pieces of that building that are 80 years old, and I think that's surprising for some people, because that building has been such an institution in our community. The other piece with the elementary school, people will say, well, that's a new school, and it opened in 1986. So that is well over.
I thought it was newer than that for some reason.
Yeah, no, 1986. So it's it's well over 30 years old. So I think for some people it's been eye-opening that the facilities are as aged as they are, and I think it gives credence to our notion of what a good job our maintenance people do keeping the buildings up that have been able to continue to operate like that.
No, I've seen some people on Facebook, and they say that the referendum is going to help our kids, it's going to help our communities, but I never can figure out the why part. Have you
Sure.
heard that? So, I mean, this is a total, it's your platform, go ahead and say what you want, but is it really going to help the community? And so how's this really going to be benefiting parents? Or, I'm sorry, children, not parents.
So there's benefits really at all levels on this. for teaching and learning. So as we look at the impact on children in a day-to-day basis, it will provide for the programming needs of current day educational best practices. And that's very important, because you look at things like 4-year-old kindergarten, that's a program that didn't exist back in 1986 when that elementary school was built.
Right.
So those types of pieces are important. The infrastructure upgrades will greatly expand our technology backbone. And again, when all these buildings were built, technology was not the educational tool that it is today. So very important. And of course, that impacts teaching on our staff too. It provides them with greater facilities and greater resources to serve students. It is, we've received numerous pieces of feedback from community leaders saying, when we have people that are looking to come to town, maybe to locate a business or looking to take a job, one of the first questions is, what are the schools like? So it's important that our schools are a piece that makes our community attractive to people that would look to come here, and that's very important. It's very important. So we look at continuing to maintain our schools and continuing to offer programming in our schools that make it attractive for people to send their children.
Well, going to technology, you had referenced that it really kind of wasn't a thing in '86. I mean, obviously technology has just exploded in the last 30 years.
Right.
But it seems like it's advancing fast. We invest a lot in technology, and then a year and a half, 2 years later, it's almost obsolete now. How do you keep up with that stuff? What's the plan to keep up with this stuff? Because it's going to need an upgrade in whatever that technology is in 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good question, because that's true. The technology just turns itself over so rapidly now. So it's important that we follow our technology plan, and that is that when we acquire equipment, that we acquire it with an eye on it not being obsolete anytime real soon. So,
good luck.
That it's adaptable, that it can
Sure.
be built.
Sure.
When we're talking about the referendum, it's really expanding that technology backbone. So it's broadband access points, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
That when these buildings were built, either they had very few of them or they had none at all, and we've had to cobble systems together to meet to match current demand with aged facilities.
Well, a lot of people I talk to that are in the education world, when they are looking to go to a different school, or maybe as a teacher or something, one of the first things that they actually look at is technology. Because according to the ones I've talked to, and this isn't universal certainly, that's kind of it's a good assessment of what the priorities are of the school. And if technology isn't near the top of the list, it's kind of a sign of some other things. I don't remember what those other things were. So with that said, technology-wise, where do you think Spooner School District is right now in the technology? And do you believe that technology should be on a very high priority for a school district?
Yeah, so good questions there. I think that we continue to move ahead in Spooner with technology. Our one-to-one programming, where our upper grade students have a device that's assigned to them, has really been a powerful learning tool. And I agree wholeheartedly that technology is a factor when people look at coming on as an employee of the school district or sending their children to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can be very confident that technology's role will only get greater as we look into the future.
Yeah.
We continue to address challenges that are unique to Spooner, and those really revolve around broadband. That the Spooner School District is very large, over 550 square miles. So, the access to internet is different depending on where you live in the district. So some students may have high-speed cable internet in their home. Others may have a DSL from a rural provider. Some may only have internet off of a cell phone. And unfortunately, there are parts of the district geographically that just don't even get cell signal. So internet is just not an option for them. And that's a piece our tech director, Hugh Miller, has really worked at that advocacy, because it is an equity issue. It's an insight that we need to address in our community, because access to the internet shouldn't drive how well you can learn.
Yeah, Hugh Miller's legit, by the way.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Really, I mean, I talk to people over in the Twin Cities, and they know who he is. Oh, you're from Spooner Bend? Oh, that Hugh Miller, that tech guy over at the school district. I'm like, man, how do you know him? He's legit. I like Hugh.
Fortunate to have him here in Spooner.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, no kidding. So what else do you want to talk about that we haven't that I didn't bring up, or that we haven't had a chance to get to?
Yeah, the referendum. I encourage people to be very safe. Really be safe as they encourage going out and voting. Again, today at 5 p.m. is the end of the time where people can request absentee ballots. And the website is myvote.wi.gov. And so if you go on there until 5 o'clock today, you can request an absentee ballot. It's important that people vote. What I believe this referendum boils down to is the level which the community is willing to support the facilities that are so important to kids having good educational experiences. And so that is the opportunity for the community to have their voice heard on this important issue. And we encourage everyone to be safe, and we encourage everyone to take advantage of the opportunity to have their voice heard and vote.
Awesome. Dave, thanks so much for joining me.
A pleasure to be here, Ben, and thanks for having me on.
You bet. We'll have you back on when we know a lot more about what the plan is for the summer, or for the rest of the school year, as soon as we get that all figured out.
That sounds great. Thank you, Ben.
All right, so special thank you to my guest today, Superintendent Dr. David Aslyn. And thank you for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning at 8:30 with a special guest. Until then, stay safe, keep your social distance, and have a blessed day.